Just in. Fox News reports, Bryan Kohberger's lawyer asks Idaho court to unseal filings, previously wanted kept secret by prosecutors.
Welcome to Verdict Vantage, covering breaking news stories. Thank you for supporting our research. We would like to extend a trigger warning before we continue. Please be advised.
This video contains discussions about true crime, which may include topics such as violence, assault, and other distressing incidents. Viewer discretion is advised.
This news comes at the heels of the controversial demolition that took place on King Road, in Idaho, on December 28, 2023, during the students' holiday break from school. To give you a quick recap into the story of Kohberger and the Idaho 4, let's take a look at this clip.
Questions and very few answers after 4 students at the University of Idaho were found murdered in their off-campus house. Authorities are calling it a crime of passion. Here's Stephen Fabian.
It's the chilling last photo of 4 University of Idaho students taken just hours before they were found murdered. They were identified as freshman Ethan Champett, his girlfriend Zana Kernodle, Kaylee Gonzalez, and Madison Mogan. It's being called a crime of passion. The killer or killers used an edged weapon such as a knife, police just revealed. I spoke with Kaylee Gonzalez's sister, Olivia, who described the last night of the students' lives.
My sisters did everything right. They went out in the buddy system. They went out together. They Ubered out. They stopped and got food. They Ubered home. They let their dog out to go potty. And then they locked their house up. They did everything right. And this still happened. Only when I
Social media videos show Kaylee as a fun-loving, vibrant young lady enjoying campus life with her sorority sisters, inside the 6-bedroom off-campus house where the murders took place. They were murdered between 3 and 4 a.m. Sunday, and their bodies were found later that morning. The medical examiner has reportedly ruled out a murder-suicide, but even with a killer still out there on the loose, authorities say there's no risk to the other students on campus, and that's all adding to the mystery of these tragic deaths. Many of the university's 12,000 students are scared and leaving early for the Thanksgiving break. The family of Kaylee Gonzalez pleaded with students in a statement. We urge you to refrain from spreading harmful rumors that aren't based in actuality. Misinformation is unfair to everyone involved.
We're mad. We're really mad. We know that there is someone who is responsible for this. We know that there's someone who saw something, and no one's talking. We're not getting any answers, and we're not going to settle for that.
Despite this unforeseen tragedy, thankfully, law enforcement and the court of the public moved swiftly in their efforts to capture the suspected killer, or killers, involved in this case. It didn't take long for officials to capture Bryan Kohberger as the suspected killer, with the help of DNA from a knife sheath located inside what has been dubbed as the King Road home, where the killings reportedly took place.
A secret grand jury has indicted the suspect in the murder of 4 University of Idaho students. The Lafayette County District Court clerk tells ABC News the grand jury returned a multi-count indictment against Bryan Kohberger, including 4 counts of first-degree murder. He's accused of stabbing 4 University of Idaho students to death in an off-campus home. ABC's Kenna Whitworth has been tracking this story for us. She joins me now along with ABC News legal contributor Brian Buckmeyer for more. Kenna, how significant is this indictment?
Well, look, Diane, it's huge. This is really the first step in the legal process, and this grand jury indictment now forgoes the preliminary hearing that we all had marked on our calendars for the end of June. So we heard this morning from the Lafayette County District County Clerk, again, confirming that a grand jury in Moscow, Idaho, has returned a multi-count indictment against Bryan Kohberger, and that includes murder in the first degree, of which he was facing 4 counts. You also have to remember he was facing that felony burglary count as well for entering a home, breaking into a home with the intent to commit murder. So what happens with this grand jury is that the jurors don't actually determine guilt here, right? They just are determining the probable cause to see if this will go to trial. So when he enters his plea, if that plea is not guilty, then a trial date will be set. And it's also important to keep in mind here that with this grand jury, it doesn't have to be a unanimous decision. And you have to think about the prosecution making this decision here. When this happens, it means that the prosecutor, their entire team is in there with just the judge and the grand jury and their witnesses. And we know how delicate the witnesses could be in this case when we're talking about these 2 surviving roommates, one of them who had been recently subpoenaed by the defense, but also the surviving roommate who we read about in this probable cause affidavit, who claims she saw a man dressed clad in black, remember, with a mask covering nose and mouth, and she made out those bushy eyebrows, which is what eventually authorities say led them to Bryan Kohberger. So again, Diane, this is huge, but it is the first step in this court case.
Due to the delicate and intricate nature of this case, amongst the media coverage and public speculation, the judge imposed a gag order on all parties involved, which sparked many mixed reactions.
This morning, the family of one of the young Idaho college students brutally murdered still fighting to speak openly about the case as a judge hears contentious arguments over a gag order.
Doesn't the court want victims' families to have representation?
the attorney on behalf of Kaylee Gonzalez's family making the case.
If you're taking my voice away, you're taking the voice away of everything.
Authorities believe Gonzalez, along with her friends Madison Mogan, Xana Kronodal, and Ethan Chapin, were murdered by 28-year-old Bryan Kohberger, seen here back in court Friday out of his orange jumpsuit for the first time, dressed in a suit and tie. The judge at times sparring with the family's attorneys.
Would you feel more comfortable if there was a more concrete description of what people could say and what they can't say?
I don't think you have the authority to do that.
Well, I think I do have the authority.
But Kohberger's attorneys arguing that the order is the only way to ensure a fair trial.
Given the vast amount of media coverage in this case, in one way, shape, or form, it will be twisted into an attack on the plant.
The November 2022 murders in this off-campus house left Moscow, Idaho on edge. Police say they have amassed more than 20,000 documents, including DNA, along with items seized in Kohberger's Washington State University apartment.
If you are interested in seeing a deep dive on this case, please comment below and let us know. Thank you, from our partners at VANTAGE. Now, let's fast forward a bit to the latest controversy in the Kohberger case that has left the public, at large, feeling fiercely unsettled.
I spent a lot of time at 1122 King Road in Moscow, Idaho, reporting on the brutal stabbing murders of 4 University of Idaho students in that home. Back in October of 2022, you're looking at that house being demolished. That was last Thursday. They took the whole house down. The school had been given the home and then chose to destroy it, and that decision has set off a lot of emotions, especially since the trial for accused killer Bryan Kohberger has been delayed. The school says the prosecution, the defense, and the FBI had access to the home before it was leveled and felt, despite the objections of some victims' families, that taking it down would help the school's community heal. And I can report exclusively tonight, this is new, that after it was torn down, the remaining pieces of the home were taken to a solid processing facility and that it was all buried several feet down beneath the earth. There was concern that people would try to take souvenirs, so the parts of the house after it was demolished were taken away and buried beneath the ground. How do victims' families feel now that the house has been taken down? I want to bring in Shannon Gray. He's the attorney for the families of 3 of the 4 victims, Kaylee Gonzalez, Maddie Mogan, and Xana Kronodal. Shannon, thank you for being with us tonight. I know you put out a statement the day before the demolition, a strongly worded statement, essentially begging the prosecution and the university not to tear the house down. And I'm just wondering now, do you feel like the relationship between the families and the prosecution is damaged at this point?
Well, I don't know if we've ever had a really good relationship with the prosecution. In this case, I've always talked about how the line of communication between the district attorney's office or the Latah County prosecutor's office and the victim's family, especially the Gonzalez family, has always been pretty poor. And so I don't know if it changed in any way. Seeing the house come down was a gut punch. I didn't realize that I would react to it so strongly, but watching it was hard. And when I spoke with Stephen Christie, it was a long day seeing that. So very emotional for Stephen Christie seeing that house come down.
Yeah, and I think the feeling about watching it come down would be different, obviously, after a trial. I mean, there's just so much that's unresolved still. I spoke with Stephen Christie at the end of last year, about 1 year after the murders, and we spoke about this. I want to play a little bit of what they said.
Destroying the house, demo the house. That's something where I think the family should have been brought in and said, what is your guys' take on it? Because we all want to be one united front. You can't tell me with the house being gone that you can give somebody the view of somebody parking right there, which is, 200 feet away. You want to look in that window and say, oh, I can totally see somebody walking through there right now. Mm-hmm. I can see it's a red shirt that they got on. Mm-hmm. They got a bandana on. Those little details of where, oh, that's why he sat there for half an hour and then drove off.
Is this good for the prosecution? Is this good for the case? And I like I said, we don't know any of this stuff, but, reading, and they talk about how jury members walk through crime scenes and stuff like that. And I'm like, this is crazy. When that house goes, it's going to be hard. I don't want to go in it. I've never even been to the house. I've never drove by it. I don't want to. But it's still going to be, when they're like, that house is gone, it is going to be very emotional for me.
Yeah, and Steve made a good point, Shannon, about, even if the inside was damaged, just walking around the outside could have been helpful for the jury if they wanted to do that.
Many have argued over the course of the investigation in this case that the decision to demolish the King Road home before the actual trial itself is a fatal mistake, to say the least. However, the University of Idaho, and its campus as a whole, seem to perceive things differently. Let's take a look.
This morning, the University of Idaho took a step closer to closure. The house where 4 University of Idaho students were murdered last year is now demolished. Our Brenda Rodriguez has been covering this all day and brings us the latest from Moscow.
We're standing right in front of what once was the home where they found the 4 University of Idaho students murdered over a year ago. And while students were sad to see that this house was demolished earlier this morning, there was a sense of relief. A tragic reminder.
You can see it from campus.
The house on King Road.
So you can see it within that housing area.
It stood standing for more than a year after 4 University of Idaho students were murdered.
It is just a constant daily reminder of the horrific act that happened there.
And now the house is no longer in sight. Demolished. One piece.
They're ready.
At a time.
They're ready for the house to come down.
The university tore down the home Thursday morning at 6:30 Pacific time, a day many students were looking forward to, including grad student Sarah Lake.
It's just really sad to look at it.
She's called Moscow home for more than 6 years.
We never locked our doors. I don't know, you just trust everyone you live with.
But that's a thing of the past.
It was just a lot for such a small town.
And now, just like many other students,
I have like alarms on my doors, which I never thought I'd have to do in this town.
And as for the demolition, Lake says it will bring some type of closure for her and her classmates.
I don't want to say things will kind of go back to normal, but I think our campus will kind of start to heal from that.
But not everyone feels that way. In a statement Wednesday, the Gonsalves family urged the prosecutor's office and university to stop the demolition and urged for a trial date to be set. But the university says tearing down the home was always part of the plan.
We have been in conversation with the prosecutor's office, and they have put it in writing that between the alterations that have happened within the interior of that house since the time of the incident, and the fact that the FBI was able to go in and create from that 3D renderings of the house that will be able to be useful to a jury, that there is no further need for the house.
Many, who are opposed to the demolition of the King Road home, are very fearful of what this could mean for this case, once it heads to trial. Today, news broke that new requests are being made by the counsel of Kohberger. What do you foresee in the case of Idaho versus Bryan Kohberger? Share your theories in the comments.
For accused Idaho college killer Bryan Kohberger now wants some of his arguments made public. The case is under strict media restrictions with a gag order in place. Kohberger's defense has filed 2 attempts to get the indictment against him dismissed. The judge denied both requests, with Kohberger's attorney filing a request under seal in December, arguing the judge should rethink his decision. The attorney now wants those arguments made public. Arguments on this request are set for January 26th.
We could soon have a start date for one of the most anticipated murder trials of the year. On January 26th, 10 days from now, 2 big hearings are on the docket in Moscow, Idaho, in the case against Bryan Kohberger. The first, in the morning, is private. It's a defense motion to toss out the indictment altogether. The defense claims the grand jury process was biased. Defense claims the grand jurors were deliberately shown inadmissible and insufficient evidence. Prosecutors say that's nonsense. Second hearing is public. Yay! And it's a 2-parter. The first one is going to focus on another defense motion about the supposedly tainted grand jury process. And yeah, I know, it's like Groundhog Day. The judge has already ruled against similar motions. So it is highly unlikely that Kohberger is going to see his quadruple murder charges dismissed. But you never know. Second part of the second hearing is all about the calendar. Ooh, you got me now. When is that trial going to start? The state has asked that the trial take place in the summertime. That's when the school is out, fewer people are around. Is the judge going to agree? I'm joined now by Richard Block. He's a criminal defense attorney in Idaho. 429 days ago this murder happened. Richard Block, what are the chances we'll see a trial a year and a half from the killings? That would be this summer.
I think that really depends on what was in that DNA data that the defense just got. So just back on January 11th, the judge ordered a partial disclosure of the IgG, or investigative genetic genealogy data, to the defense. It really depends what's in that. How long it's going to take them to get through that? What else does that maybe bring up? And I'm sure right now the defense, if they've actually got it in their hands, has got that to their expert, and they're looking through it and trying to figure out what's in there.
Yeah, but here's what I think, which is like, doesn't matter. But I've watched a lot of these things, and it's amazing if you can get a single murder trial into a courtroom in a year and a half, let alone a quadruple murder trial with death penalty on the table and a crime scene that's littered with so many sources of DNA, like the Idaho house was. Do you think it's possible, even in 2024, we could see this murder trial?
I'd be surprised. I always expect it to take much more time than a year and a half. Like, generally, you would think at least 2 years for any murder. But who knows? Things could go faster. Not being directly involved in the case, it's hard to tell you exactly.